Jiminy Crickets.
Jiminy Cricket is the name. I'm a happy-go-lucky fellow, always getting in wrong for singing my song. A merry old soul am I. Jiminy Cricket is the name. I'll be hanging around this evening. I'll be tipping my hat and telling you that Jiminy Cricket is the name.
Crick, 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 boom.
Hello, Cricketeers, and welcome back to Dateline Jiminy Crickets. This week, we have a very special Valentine's Day themed top 10 list and the Disney news. How are you doing, Ruthie?
I'm doing great, and I'm feeling so loved. How about you?
I feel Twitter-pated. So we are originally airing this on Valentine's Eve, so we thought it would be a good idea to do something Valentine's Day related, which we will do in just a moment. But first, we have a very special announcement. Jiminy Crickets Live proudly endorses Concierge Vacation Planners, a Disney-authorized specialty vacation planning service. Concierge doesn't just book your trip, they walk you through the entire process, helping you plan out every detail, one-on-one, to make the very most out of your vacation while saving you both time and money. And the best part is, they charge nothing for their services. You will get the exact same pricing as if you booked your vacation directly through Disney. But in using Concierge expertise, you've got the added bonus of having your very own personal Disney Guru planner by your side. Both Ruthie and I are also satisfied customers, and we just can't recommend them enough. Visit their website at www.concierge.com. That's www.concierge.com, as in mouse ears. So when you book your next Disney vacation, be it Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Line, or many of the other Disney destinations available worldwide, contact Concierge Vacation Planners, and be sure to tell them Disney Chris sent you. Well, for our special Valentine's Day themed top 10, we're not just giving you 10, but we're giving you 20! This is going to be a special top 20 because the topic that we chose, we just couldn't narrow it down to 10. So we decided to do 20, and also, unlike past lists, these are sort of, Ruthie and I kind of came up with the list together, so they're kind of both of our choices on all of them. This is Ruthie and Chris's top 20, not this is mine, this is Ruthie's. They're all both of ours, if that makes any sense. So let's get started, Ruthie, on our very romantic topic.
Yes.
So as you can see, we are going to be doing the top 20 Disney animated couples. Again, we had to limit it because we started getting into Eglantine Price and Mr. Brown, and it just got crazy after a while. It's like Tom and Mary from Babes in Toyland. So we had to say, okay, only animated, no Pixar. We'll be here all night.
Right.
So this is just this is just the Disney animated, with one of them we're sort of pushing it a little bit. It's still technically animated, so we included it. And you'll know what we're talking about when we get to it. So, do you want to name the first one, Ruthie?
Alrighty. So our first animated couple is Mulan and Shang. And we're mentioning them here because they're a great couple, and I personally like the fact that Shang supports Mulan, and they fight together. They fight the bad guy together. I mean, you know, when a couple is fighting the bad guy together, you know they're going to be together forever. So that's kind of where we wanted to honor their relationship and the way that they come together at the end and just are ready to, you know, continue their relationship beyond the end of the movie. Do you have anything to say about that?
The whole time you've been talking, all it's in my head is, let's get down to business. Yeah. That's all I can think of right now.
Well, that's what they do, defeat the Huns.
Yes, exactly.
Together.
Yes. A girl worth fighting for. I love the songs from this.
Yeah.
And I really, I love how he doesn't even know, like they become friends before they become lovers, because he doesn't know that she's a female. Mm-hmm. He just thinks of her as one of the guys. Yeah. But he really develops a friendship, a kinship, before they become romantically involved, which is kind of different for a Disney film. Yeah. And I like that dynamic.
I do too.
So our next entry, number 19, is Meg and Hercules. And this is sort of a different type of relationship, too, than the average Disney couple, because Meg is actually plotting against Hercules because she's sort of enslaved by Hades and has to sort of do his bidding. So against her will, she's forced to help Hades defeat Hercules, and it's a little bit more involved than the normal boy meets girl, girl meets boy love story. So it makes it more interesting. And also, I just love her. Meg is just one of those characters that even though it's about Hercules, you leave the movie thinking, like, she steals this movie. Well, her and Hades steal the movie. I just love her attitude, the way she rolls her eyes, and she's just such a 90s woman. Like, that's just makes me... Whenever I see her, I just think that's how women really were in the 90s. You know? Self-assured, didn't put up with...
This couple is a definition of it's complicated. So
yeah, exactly. But what I was gonna say is she's self-assured, doesn't need a man, doesn't take a man's nonsense, rolls her eyes at, you know, the goings on the other side of the gender equation, and she's just you know, she's the type of gal I could be a good friend with, I feel. You know, I relate to her. She sort of reminds me of Ruthie. She just doesn't put up with nonsense.
Aw.
Well, I mean, that's a good... I
appreciate that, because I do like Meg, too.
Yeah.
And she's tough, you know?
She
falls in love with Hercules in spite of what she...
Yeah, she tries not to.
Right,
she does a whole song about not wanting to fall in love with him.
Right.
But she ends up... I mean, he's Hercules, come on. It's kind of hard to resist.
Yeah.
So who's our next entry? Or entries?
Our next couple is the only inanimate object couple that we have on the list.
Oh,
and it's
interesting.
Johnny Fedora and Alice Bluebonnet.
Oh.
So, aren't they so cute? This is from Make Mine Music. Right? I'm right?
Right, 1946, yes.
Yep. So this little short that was part of that you know, package film, and the song that goes along with this is classic song.
Yeah,
it tells their love story.
Yeah, the Andrews Sisters did 2 shorts for the package films. You remember what the other one was? Little Toot.
Oh yeah. Oh, little Toot. So cute.
So
So
this
we
is
wanted to recognize them.
Yeah, well, part of the reason they're so high, they're high up, and we included them is because the song is just so memorable and just makes you think of Valentine's Day. It's just, it's just classic Disney. And it's also shows, because Disney did a lot of these types of things where they brought inanimate things to life. Like, it reminds me of Susie, the little blue coupe, and the little house.
Oh, I love the little house.
And the one we just mentioned, Little Toot, where they give personalities to inanimate objects. And this, unlike the first two, is much more of the classic love story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy meets
and I
girl.
love how they find each other at the end.
Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy finds girl. They live happily ever after. Yeah, and they tell them how they find each other, Ruthie, at the end.
Well, they just end up on male and female's head, who they are, going out together. So
The horses.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Lo, and what do they say? And he cut him to fit on his horse's ears. Oh, he did without malice, for beside him was Alice. And they lived on for years and years. And then they get all remember how they get all jazzy at the end?
Yes.
Da 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 da. You Johnny fedoras, you Alice bluebonnets. Anyway.
Cute song. Cute song. If you haven't heard it, go listen to it because it's so cute.
Well, our next couple is our first married couple.
Yes.
Right? Have the other three never got, well, maybe
No.
after the cartoon, but they got married in the movie. Well, sort
You're
of.
right. They did. Yeah.
They stood outside the chapel while
Just holding
Roger
hands
and Anita.
and looking at each other, or holding paws.
Yeah. And here is their assortment of pups. This is Pongo and Perdita, of course, from 101 Dalmatians, 1961. For those who want to check it out, our 101st episode of our regular audio Jiminy Cricket show was all about this movie. So we went into great depth about the making of this film.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing that stands out is how this couple is sort of linked together by their tragic loss, and they sort of, it shows how strong their bond is by how they work together to find their missing puppies. So they're a very strong couple devoted to each other. We had to include them.
Yeah,
The
and
first
they are
of a
willing to
few-
leave their owners to go find their puppies.
Right. This is the first of a few non-human
Yes.
characters we'll be talking about. So who's the next one on our list?
The next one is a couple that is near and dear to my heart, Duchess and Thomas O'Malley. Now, this is one of my favorite animated films, and I just love this couple. Like, this is the couple that you would never think would get together. What do they even have in common? But when, Duchess and the kittens are lost, Thomas O'Malley steps up out of the goodness of his heart, and he helps them, and he even fights against Edgar for them. So he just instantly, when he sees them, he just goes into protective mode, and he's there for them the rest of the film. And I love Thomas O'Malley. I love that character, and I love at the end when they take the little family picture and he has a bow tie on. Oh,
Yeah.
I just love this couple.
He cleans up well.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's sort of the reason he gets involved in the first place is because he sort of has the hots for Duchess.
Right.
Then when he finds out she has kids, he's sort of reluctant, but then his heart gets the best of him and sees that they're not going to survive without getting back home, so he does the noble thing and helps them get back home. And in doing so, he ends up falling in love with her kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Yeah,
form
because
a
he has
bond.
the street smarts that they don't have, and that's what they
Right.
need in order to get back home. So, yeah.
Right. So our next couple is Robin Hood and Maid Marian from the movie No Deposit, No Return. No, from the movie Robin Hood.
Right.
So this was a classic animated film that came out the very year I was born, 1973. Remember when we did our 1973 review on my birthday?
I remember, yes. That was fun.
So this is the classic, you know, what do they call
Mademoiselle?
in distress?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Damsel.
he's like, damsel in distress. Why couldn't I think of that?
I don't know.
And he's the swashbuckling, noble hero of old classic lore. Maid Marian is just sort of... They don't go into a lot of why they're in love. There's a whole backstory that's sort of hinted at in the movie. They have a history that's not really gotten into in the books. It's much more spelled out. You know the whole story, and they were gonna do a little bit more about their backstory. There was a whole scene cut out from the film where Robin Hood was gonna sing a verse of the song Love, and they were gonna show a flashback of their relationship during the song. They ended up cutting out that song, and they only have what originally was going to be a reprise of Love. The second time they sang it in the movie, when Maid Marian sang it. But originally there was supposed to be two times that they had that song in the movie. So that's interesting. But
Yeah.
I just always loved their relationship because it's just sort of the heroic figure, the damsel in distress, just that classic Hollywood type story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
they're cute.
who's next?
Our next couple is Tiana and Prince Naveen from A Princess and the Frogs. I'm not saying that right, but...
A Princess
You
and the
guys know that
Frogs. A Princess and the Frogs.
Yeah.
There
She
there
has
were
multiple frogs.
that hussy. Cheating on Naveen.
Yeah. So we were just talking before we started recording this episode that Chris was having a hard time finding an image for them because the majority of the movie they spend as frogs. So
Right. All
So-
the images of them together that were good, that looked good, were not from the movie. Like, they were fan art or paintings done after. So I wanted a shot from the actual movie, and there were a few of them, like, building the nightclub at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But she looked like she's wearing work clothes. And
Right, yeah.
I wanted her to look like a princess, so I finally found this image. I went through a couple before. We were going to use a different image before I picked this one, but why do you feel they belong on our list, Ruthie?
I mean, I just think that they're a great couple. I mean, the way that they meet and the how the story unfolds as, they're frogs, they're trying to turn back into people, and how they, connect while they're trying to do that, and the things that they encounter.
Well,
Dr. Facilier.
The other thing is she has no romantic interests at all. She's got her set goal.
Right.
She doesn't want to deal with romance, and she ends up falling in love despite herself.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, what's the name of the old lady that lived in the swamp that she said...
Oh, Mama Odie?
Mama Odie said she thinks she knows what she needs, but she really doesn't. And that was part of her whole song that she sang, was about that. So, our next couple is one of my favorites, Bernard and Bianca. They were actually in 2 movies together, The Rescuers and The Rescuers Down Under. So they were a couple that lasted.
Yeah.
Quite, their relationship stayed, and he actually proposed to her at the end of. Well, he tried to propose to her earlier in the movie, but at the end of The Rescuers Down Under, they get engaged. So, but one thing I always liked about them is when you would see them walking around Disneyland together. When they used to still show them in Disneyland. But yeah,
in the 70s
and early 80s, yeah. But one thing I like is she sort of seduces him. He's a willing seductee, but she's just as interested in him as he is in her. But he sort of feels like he's not good enough for her, but she feels quite differently. In fact, she sort of arranges it so that they do their case together to find Penny, because she has sort of a feeling he might be Mr. Right. So she arranges it so that they work together, and that's when they form their bond.
Yeah, one thing I like about them is, so Bianca has kind of like a adventurous spirit, and Bernard is willing to just go along on her adventures with her, and he helps them, in the different situations that they end up in. And I love that. He's so supportive of her. He's
very superstitious, and he's got a lot of hang-ups about, he's not as brave as she is.
Right.
But she sort of encourages him to be a braver person and to take risks. And I like that too. I like that dynamic.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier that one of our animated characters was a little bit of a stretch, but anyway, who are they, Ruthie?
Jack and Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
So they are animated, just not cartoon animated.
Right.
So I think Jack and Sally is just such a great couple, and how they end up together is just perfect. In the beginning, Jack's just not in the mindset, and Sally is, kind of longingly watching him as he goes down his rabbit hole of, a situation that he ends up in. And she even predicts that something bad is gonna happen to him. And
in a roundabout way, she sort of served during certain parts of the movie. She sort of serves the function of the Greek chorus.
Right.
Because she's sort of singing about him and how he's making mistakes and going about things the wrong way. And he's too wrapped up in his own mind to A, notice her at all.
Right.
And B, to even think that what he's doing, there's anything wrong with what he's doing. But eventually he comes to his senses, and everyone sort of abandons him, and she's there.
She's still there, yeah.
So she's devoted to him, and she loves him not because he's the king of,
right.
or because he's, the leader of all of Halloween Town. She loves him for what's inside. So it's a great
And they're truly
story.
meant to be.
Yes. So next is one of my favorite of the more recent couples, Flynn Rider and Rapunzel. And what I like about them is they seem so real. They're like when we talk about some of the earlier Prince and Princess stories, they're very two-dimensional. These characters, as all the characters in this film, are very well-rounded characters, and it's like not so much Rapunzel, but especially Flynn Rider. He really has, we know people like him. He's the typical, jock who thinks he knows everything, but he has a good heart. He's not a bad person. He's just a little self-absorbed. But when he meets the right woman, he learns to let go of some of those more selfish things and learns to care about someone else. I mean, that's a story happening every day around the whole world, so that's very real. And their relationship just seems so genuine and real to me. And I could see a couple like that really falling in love. it's not as two-dimensional. Not that I'm putting down the earlier Disney cartoons. I'm just saying this one really, for me, felt like I had a good feeling about this couple, and I felt, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you get a deeper insight into them as individuals and also as a couple. So yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So who's next? Roar!
Our next couple is Simba and Nala from The Lion King. And this couple is kind of unique because they actually grow up together. They're little, they know each other from, different mothers in the tribes they are, they're born to, and then they grow up together when they're young. Then when Simba leaves, they lose connection, but she's the one who actually finds him in the jungle and brings him back. And so This is like a really good couple that, she knows that he's willing to help, and she talks him into it, even though he is very hesitant to come back because, he thinks things that are incorrect. But, we definitely want to recognize Simba and Nala as being like a good couple of characters that really, tie the story together in The Lion King.
Timon and Pumbaa aren't too thrilled about it.
Right, but they get over that.
Yeah. So we're getting into the top 10 here.
Yeah.
And our next couple is a classic Disney couple. Lady and Tramp from Lady and the Tramp. And, I mean, just if you're watching this, not listening to it, just looking at this image, which is the spaghetti eating image, that you don't have to say anything else. This is probably one of the most iconic moments, not just of any Disney movie, but of any movie ever. Mm-hmm. And certainly one of the most iconic romantic scenes of any film ever.
Definitely.
This is the story of the dog from the other side of the tracks and the socialite who have nothing in common, just like the Aristocat, sort of. Mm-hmm. They have nothing in common, but they just end up falling in love because opposites attract.
Yep. Who hasn't
just
wanted to eat one long piece of spaghetti with your partner, okay?
To quote Paula Abdul, opposites attract.
Yeah.
Well, perfect timing, Ruthie.
I know, right?
Because the song that's playing right now just happens to perfectly line up with what our next couple is.
Yep. This is Aladdin and Jasmine from the movie Aladdin. Aladdin is my favorite Renaissance film. I love Aladdin.
Me too. Yeah.
And I love how they connect. Even though right here he's technically Prince Ali and she thinks that he's not. Although she does suspect that he might be Aladdin when she met him in the marketplace.
I always thought she knew the whole time.
You think she knew the whole time?
I thought she knew the whole time. Nobody was fooling her. She was just playing along to appease him. Yeah, she knew it.
Yeah. So here, this is the image of them riding on the carpet. But I just love how they're just an unusual couple as well. Because, Princess Jasmine is basically trying to reject all of the ideas that are put upon her just by being a princess. And Aladdin helps her do that.
Yeah.
And when he does reveal himself to be Aladdin, the beggar in the marketplace, she does not turn away from him because of that. It's almost like they have more of a connection because of that. So I really like that she's willing to look beyond, the outside appearance and look inside at his heart.
The diamond in the rough.
Yep. You are more than what you seem.
Well, our next couple, we're getting into the classics here. We just talked about this film in our last episode of our Jiminy Cricket's audio show. This is Prince Philip and Aurora from Sleeping Beauty, 1959. The last of the classic Prince and Princess stories from Walt Disney's lifetime. I would have to say probably the most beautiful couple from Walt Disney's lifetime.
Yeah.
They sort of like tried to make both of them, the prince and the princess, look very attractive.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, we don't get as much of a rounded character as with Flynn Rider and Rapunzel.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But what makes them higher up on the list is, first, they're just a classic Disney couple.
Right.
Just the fact they're from the movie they're in puts them high on the list. And second of all, just the visuals, just the iconic visuals from, I mean, the scene you're looking at here where she's kissing her to awaken her, the scene where they're dancing at the end, the scene where they're hand in hand, and just, you know, he risks his life to find her. Not a lot of the romantic figures, there are a few that we've mentioned, but very few put their life on the line to save their damsel in distress, as it were. So that's why they're higher up on the list. But speaking of iconic couples, who is our next entry, Ruthie?
Our next entry is Ariel and Prince Eric. So,
was that a descriptive of his personality, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was a tongue-tied moment there.
Oh, not a Freudian slip.
No. So, with this couple, you know, Ariel loves...
Oh my gosh, wait a minute. Listen to the song. Like, the music is lining up with these pictures.
This is not planned.
This was not at all planned.
So, Ariel sees Prince Eric at the beginning of the film when she's a mermaid, and, you know, she actually saves him during a shipwreck, and she basically, it's a love at first sight for her.
Yeah.
And so
well, she's never seen a human male, let alone a handsome human male before.
Right. So the rest of the movie is her trying to,
win his heart.
Make him win his heart, make him notice her, and, you know, and the things that she does for him is a huge sacrifices. She sacrifices her voice, which she is known for under the sea. So, you know, it's just you know,
and
what people will do for love.
It makes it nearly impossible for her to get him to fall in love with her because he can't communicate with her.
Right.
But
that doesn't stop her.
It doesn't stop her. And also Ursula sort of gave her a catch-22 with that, because she sort of knew that, this isn't going to happen if I take her voice away. So that was her
She
plot.
overcomes it all and wins her, the love of her life.
Yes. So our next couple, again, we're getting in the high figures here.
Yep.
This is one of the most iconic Disney couples of all time, Cinderella and Prince Charming. Interestingly, out of all the princes, even if they don't have a name in the movie, they are given names in other forms of media, like in books or other record albums or things about the same movie and same characters. They are given names. Prince Philip had a name in the movie, but this is the only prince that just was never given a real name, and he's just known as Prince Charming. The prince from Snow White is also known as Prince Charming, but he was given a name after the fact.
Yeah.
So Cinderella really doesn't have a name either, if you think about it, because Cinderella was a nasty nickname that her stepmother and stepsisters gave her. They don't really play that out in the Disney version, but in the original story, she was called Cinderella because she was covered with cinders, because they forced her to work in the ashes and clean the fireplace and whatnot. So these two really don't have real names. Technically. Maybe his name really is Charming.
Maybe.
But again, I mean, So this is love segment, which you're looking at in this image here at the ball, and how they walk around in the moonlight over that bridge, and that whole romantic scene from So This Is Love. When he picks up the glass slipper, when they get married at the end with the bells ringing and they run down the steps into that carriage and drive away, which I should mention, that's how Robin Hood ends too. They copied that scene they reused that same scene for Robin Hood. So, I mean, just a classic romantic love story. Very two-dimensional, but it's not all about well-rounded characters. Sometimes it's just about the overall feeling of the film itself and just the visuals that make them highly rated. So,
one thing about this couple, though, I think that when she first goes to the ball, I think part of what he's so attracted to when he sees her is her heart, because she is a genuine person who really cares about, people and doing the right thing. And even though it's not, explicitly expressed, I think that's part of the reason why he's drawn to her.
Something different in her that the other noble women in the kingdom don't have. She's more innocent and just real, and there's just
she doesn't even know who he is, and everybody else is there to impress him. She doesn't find out who he is until the end of the movie. So when he's I think that's a good storyline there.
So again, another iconic couple.
Yes, this is one of my favorite couples as well, because I do really love Beauty and the Beast. And so this is obviously Belle and Prince Adam, also known as the Beast.
He does have a name.
He does.
Unlike our previous candidate.
Yes. And this story, the way it starts, you would never think that Belle would fall in love with the Beast. But
I knew. Because when I went to see it, I already knew the story.
Oh, you already knew? Yeah. Well, if you didn't already know, and you just saw the way that he holds her captive and things like that, you would never think that they were going to fall in love. But she is able to see that, as he starts trying to be nice to her, of course, with the help of the objects in the castle, he opens up to her and shows him his true feelings and the true person that he is inside, all under all of that fur. And she is able to let him in. And, this is just such a great love story on how, the connection is between the people that you are inside, not the outside. Yeah,
and one thing, I never liked the way he looked when he turned into the prince. So that's why I didn't use that as an image. I just was never a fan of Prince Adam. I prefer the Beast. And usually when they walk around in the park,
it's the Beast.
It's the Beast, because pretty much everyone prefers the Beast.
You would not recognize it if it was Adam.
Yeah, it's like, who's this dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, classic. This is as classic as it gets. This is the very first Prince and Princess. And again, this prince does have a name, but it is never mentioned in the movie. His name is Florian. And I have a funny story. I have a very good friend named Rose, who I talk with every day on Twitter. She's one of the very first people who followed me on Twitter, and we've been following each other, and for years we've been communicating every day. She's a really great friend. Anyway, she got a cat a few years ago, this really cute little white fur ball of a cat, and she thought it was a male, and so she named it after the prince from Snow White. She named it Florian. Come to find out, about 6 or 7 months later, nope, this is a girl. So she just kept the name. I think the name could be used for either gender. It sounds like one of those kind of names that would work for either gender. Yeah. But it's the most adorable cat. Anyway, getting back to the topic, Again, two-dimensional. I think out of the three princesses during Walt's lifetime, Snow White had a little bit more of a character. She's a little bit more rounded as a character than the other two, slightly more. But he had nothing. Like he was just like there to make the story work. He had no personality at all. Yeah, he really doesn't have a personality. He's just sort of a placeholder, you know. And the other thing is they didn't want to animate him too much because they had a lot of trouble animating him. They hadn't really reached the point where they were that confident in animating human characters. Snow White they got away with because she had her dress, you know, she had a flowing dress that covered her legs, but him, they had to show him walking and everything. There's even a couple moments in the movie where he sort of glitches a little bit that they didn't end up fixing because the budget was just out of control, over budget. They just didn't have the time or money to fix it. It's still in the movie to this day where he sort of glitches a little bit here and there. But anyway, again, like the other two, like Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella, it's not the characters themselves that put them so high on the list. It's the iconic look of this movie, just the whole feeling you get from this movie. It's just Disney at its finest, and that's what makes them so high up on the list. Now, go ahead.
I just don't think you would know what a princess is if we didn't have Snow White, because she's the first one.
Walt Disney really defined the modern perception, at least in the United States, of what a princess is.
Yeah.
The prince and princess, and this movie is sort of what started it all.
Yeah, that's why this couple is at number 3.
So now we've got our top 2, and they're biggies.
Yes.
So who's number 2, Ruthie?
Well, we cannot have a top 20 Disney couples without having Donald and Daisy on this list. And that's who we have, Donald and Daisy.
Yeah.
I mean, as you watch Donald's shorts, you see their relationship develop, but I just love how Daisy doesn't put up with any of Donald's crap. I mean, she just keeps it real.
Yeah.
And she's not dealing with it. She's not even an ounce of it. And I just love that because that really helps him to kind of, you know, keep going off the rails, you know. With her, he knows he can't. And so he just keeps, you know, he's able to keep it in check.
There's a few things that should be noted about Donald and Daisy. They're like the opposite of Mickey and Minnie.
Yeah.
Daisy is not a sweet little bubbly bundle of joy. She is very egotistical. She's greedy. She's into like pampering herself. She's very self-centered. Donald has a hot temper. He's, you know, easily upset, self-centered. He likes to, you know, tease little animals. Yep. They're sort of rotten, both of them, and they're meant for each other.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing about Daisy is that she's constantly challenging Donald to keep his temper, you know, low, but she has a worse temper than he does.
Yeah, that's true. She keeps it hidden well, though. Yeah,
in fact, their first cartoon that she was ever in, she wasn't even named Daisy yet. It took place in I think Mexico or Spain, and she was like this woman up on the balcony, and all she did through the whole movie is scream at him in Spanish, and then she wouldn't go out with him because he came to pick her up with a burro. She refused to go out with him unless he brought a car. So he had to go find a car, and then when he had a car, she was all over him. Yeah. Like she's very like superficial and into like, it's not about, you know, who's the best man, it's about who has the best car and the best clothes, and so she's sort of a piece of work.
Yeah, but you know where you stand with her. She is not hiding it.
Right.
So
Oh no,
that's, she keeps it real. Daisy keeps it real.
Yeah. So, I guess I've already hinted, and I guess I don't even have to say, you probably already all know who the number one couple is, and that would be Pluto and Fifi. No. Oh, we should have included Pluto and Fifi.
I guess so.
We forgot about them. Anyway, Mickey and Minnie Mouse, they're the first Disney romantic couple.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you could say Oswald and what's his girl's name?
I don't even know. What's her name?
I forget.
Hortensia or something like that?
Something like that. Something bizarre. But anyway, Mickey and Minnie, they share a birthday. They're the longest lasting couple in Hollywood history. They've been dating since 1928. They've never been married.
Years.
They've never been married. They're still just, two crazy kids in love. And to me, the thing with Mickey and Minnie is they are ageless. Like, he may technically be 90 years old, but I feel like they're always stuck at about 25. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're like a young couple in love around age 25. And it's like, to me, it reminds me of maybe how Walt and Lillian were when they were in their 20s. Mickey and Minnie are sort of Walt and Lillian, who were very happy couple. They were together for their whole, until Walt died. They were devoted to each other. And Lillian was very shy and reserved, and Mickey was a little bit more out there. And, so I feel like that was the inspiration for these characters. Very rarely do you see Minnie get upset, but she can once in a while get upset. Mm-hmm. But unlike Daisy, she is like all that's sweet and nice, and she's just a sweet, kind, loving soul, as is Mickey. So it's like when you put those two couples together, it sort of works perfectly because you've got sort of the yin and yang of romance. So that, do you have anything to say about Mickey and Minnie?
I mean, I love what you said about, parallel with Walt and Lillian. That's just, that touches my heart. So let's end on that.
All right. So that is our top 20 Disney animated couples. And now it's time for the Jiminy Crickets news.
From the far corners of the earth, from across the 7 seas, the news of the day for the leaders of tomorrow. The Mickey Mouse Newsreel, dedicated to you, the leaders of the 21st century.
So, again, this is becoming a pattern, unfortunately.
Not one that we want.
Not one that we look forward to or want, but it seems like every episode we've done since we started doing Dateline, we've sort of started it off on the same foot, and it's not fun, and it's sad to have to do these memorials, but I feel like these people deserve some recognition, and we would be remiss if we didn't do a tribute. And out of, all of the people we've talked about, Don Lusk, Stan Lee, Ron Miller is probably the most significant as far as Disney history, because he was basically running the show after Roy Disney died. Walt's brother, Roy, died. From the 70s up until the early 80s, Ron Miller was basically Disney. He was running the show. He made all the decisions. And the thing is, this is when I was growing up. This was my childhood era of Disney, was the 70s and 80s, early 80s. So Ron Miller is really responsible for what made me fall in love with Disney in the first place. And he really doesn't get that probably some of you watching this don't even know who he is, never heard of him. Because he was a very quiet and humble person, and he wasn't out to make a name for himself. And even so, he had a profound impact on the Walt Disney Company, and he's definitely worth talking about. Now, I almost just got choked up right now when I said how he was my childhood, and when I was reading the articles about him the other day, I didn't realize this was going to happen when I started reading the articles, but I got really emotionally upset. I had to grab a box of tissues, so you'll have to forgive me if during this little review of his life that we're going to do right now, if I get a little emotional, because it is emotional for me, because he really produced some of my favorite Disney films, and he did some of my things that are my favorite things about Disney. Post-Walt, of course.
Right.
So, let's talk about Ron Miller, who recently passed away. How old was he, Ruthie?
He was 85.
He was 85, right. So what articles did we look at for this, Ruthie? The ones that made me cry, in other words.
We looked at 4 different articles. The first one, Ron W. Miller, former Disney president and CEO, passes away at 85, by Matthew Soberman for WDW News Today from February 9th. The Walt Disney Family Museum mourns the loss of Ron Miller from the Walt Disney Family Museum blog on February 9th. A tribute to Ron Miller, 1933 to 2019, by Shelley Valladolid for Mice Chat, February 9th. And Ron Miller dies, former Disney CEO and Walt Disney's son-in-law was 85, by Patrick Hypes for Deadline. That was from February 10th.
Okay, so for those who don't know who he was the spouse of Diane Disney Miller, who was originally Diane Disney. She kept her she had the hyphenated thing, that they do. I mean, if your name was Disney, I would keep it too.
Keep it, yeah.
Yeah. This is a picture of their wedding. They were married in 1954, just a year before Disneyland opened. And he was a football player at, was it USC or UCLA?
Yep. USC.
He was a jock, but he wasn't like the typical jock. He was, he wasn't an idiot. He he had a good head on his shoulders. He was very nice, humble, and very devoted person. And
I think it's interesting that they actually met. Diane and Ron met on a blind date.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and then they ended up falling in love and getting married, and Walt always loved Ron. He had very warm affection for him. He was very happy when they got married. You can tell in this picture. He was quite happy that day.
Yeah. I actually heard a story that Diane said that on her wedding day, she looked over at Walt and she saw a tear in his eye. I think that's so sweet.
Yeah. So anyway, originally he was, he did some work during the construction of Disneyland. He was sort of a gopher. He would bring plans to and from the studio in Disneyland. So he got to see the park as it was being built. And he was waiting to be recruited into the Army. Eventually he did serve in the Army, and when he finished, he became a professional football player for the LA Rams, I believe.
Yes.
And Walt Disney, and I'll let you read this quote.
Okay.
He only saw him play in 2 football games, Walt Disney. And at the one of them that he went to, he got knocked the crud out of. Like, he was like on
unconscious.
the ground. Yeah. And Walt walked up to him, and Ron Miller told the story, and we have the quote here. It's rather amusing. You want to read that quote?
Sure. So I'll start from the beginning of the quote. So, my father-in-law saw me play in 2 football games when I was with the LA Rams. In one of them, I caught a pass, and Dick Night Train Lane let me have it from the rear. His forearm came across my nose and knocked me unconscious. I woke up about the 3rd quarter. At the end of the season, Walt came up to me and said, "You know, I don't want to be the father of your children. You're going to die out there. How about coming to work with me?" I did, and it was a wise decision on my part. And Ron made this quote to the entertainment reporter Dale Pollock in August of 1984.
And so was the beginning of a long career with Disney. And he sort of started off doing smaller things. He worked on television projects with Walt. And one of the interesting things he did was he actually directed Walt himself during some of the opening segments of The Wonderful World of Color. And that must have been nerve-wracking.
Oh, yeah.
To direct
especially because Walt didn't even want to do it.
Yeah, he had to tell him where to stand and be in charge of... He probably got the job because nobody else wanted to do it. Nobody else wanted to tell Walt where to stand and what to do.
He's your father-in-law. You do
it, right. So that led to other things. He worked on Zorro. He worked on Old Yeller. He was involved to a lesser degree in all those live-action films of the late 50s into the early 60s. And as time went by, he got more and more involved and moved higher and higher up in the ranks until he became assistant producer, then producer, and eventually he became executive producer on several movies. And several classic movies that we know and love. This picture you're looking at right here is actually Walt Disney's firehouse apartment, and you can see the family sitting around enjoying a cup of tea while Walt Disney has his slippers on, and he's just sort of definitely chilling out. He looks like he's exhausted. This next picture is a lot of fun because it's from a magazine article from the late 50s in which Diane wrote a story about her father. It was called My Father, Walt Disney. She eventually ended up turning it into a book. And this is a photo that was attached to the original magazine article, and it's just sort of a rare look at Walt Disney at home, hanging out with his family. He's got his 2 grandkids. There's Sharon, his other daughter, and Diane. Lillian is holding, I think that's Christopher, his oldest grandson. Yeah. And that's his dog, Lady, which we've talked about on this show before. Yep. And of course, there's Ron.
The weenies.
Yes, she created the term weenie that he used for things in his park that draw your attention. And there's Ron with the family. So I just love this picture. I thought it would be fun to show. So anyway, when Walt Disney passed away, he started to really get into more and more and more productions. It started when Walt was still alive. He was associate producer for some of the live-action screwball comedies, starting with Moon Pilot. And it's funny that he started with that because, to me, that's one of the worst movies Disney has ever produced. Like, there's only 2 movies during Walt Disney's lifetime that were produced that I hate, and that just happens to be one of them. And the other one he had nothing to do with, so that's good. And he was only associate producer, so he didn't have final say on anything, so we can't blame him for that. So it was sort of a rocky start, but then he went on to some a little bit more fun stuff that I do enjoy, like Bon Voyage and Son of Flubber, both starring Fred MacMurray. And he was associate producer of Summer Magic. And then he bumped up to producer for 2 movies starring Annette and Tommy Kirk, The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, and The Monkey's Uncle. And then he co-produced, which is a step up from producer, believe it or not. It goes associate producer, producer, co-producer, executive producer. I think that's the ranking order, if I'm not mistaken. So he co-produced That Darn Cat. I mean, these are movies that are just classic Disney live-action films that we grew up on. Lieutenant Robin Crusoe, USN, with Dick Van Dyke. Another Dick Van Dyke, Never a Dull Moment. That movie is hysterical. If you haven't seen Never a Dull Moment, the title says it all. You should see that movie. If you're a Dick Van Dyke fan, especially. Another great one, Boatniks, which was just a complete farce, just funny stuff. He did some of the some movies with what's his name, Kurt Russell. He did Now You See Him, Now You Don't, and then he did Snowball Express, and that was with Dean. What's his? I can't think right now. Dean from The Love Bug. Dean Jones.
Yeah, Dean Jones. I was having a blank there, too.
So the first film that he was the executive producer on was 1975. So see how he sort of moved up another notch after Roy Disney was gone? This was when he was starting to become at the level of he was becoming, he was soon to be president of the company. And in 75, he was the executive producer of Escape to Witch Mountain. And then he did others like No Deposit, No Return, which I mentioned earlier tonight. Gus, which is about a donkey who played football. And The Shaggy DA, which we mentioned the other day with Suzanne Plachette. Freaky Friday, and then the first animated film that he executive produced was The Rescuers, and he did a few others after that. He did some of the Herbie sequels, Pete's Dragon, Candle Shoe. He did the sequel to Witch Mountain, Return from Witch Mountain, The Cat from Outer Space. We're talking about, these movies are like the movies I grew up on. These are my childhood here. I love all these movies, except for Moon Pilot. I love all these movies.
Well, all these that you're naming now, it's like, this is Disney in the 70s.
Yeah, this is he was Disney in the 70s. The Cat from Outer Space, The North Avenue Irregulars, which is a hilarious, if you haven't seen that one, see it immediately. The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again, The Black Hole, one of my secret favorites, Midnight Madness.
It's not a secret anymore, Chris.
I just love that movie. It's not, Disney didn't even put their name on the movie, so you might not even know it's a Disney movie, but it is, and when you watch it you can tell it's a Disney movie. The Last Flight of Noah's Ark, Herbie Goes Bananas, Condor Man, Tron, and then The Black Cauldron was the last thing he did, and that was probably the nail in his coffin because of all the controversy around The Black Cauldron. But here is a picture of him during the production of The Black Cauldron. You can see some of the background and inspirational imagery behind him. And here are some of the movies we just talked about. I mean, just look at this. Just look at all these wonderful movies that he was involved in.
Yeah.
I mean, not just involved in, he was in charge of the production of all these films. And yet, very few people even know who he is, have ever even heard of him. This is the funniest picture I found. This is Card Walker who was kind of involved in Imagineering and parks. And Ron Miller was sort of in charge of everything at this point, not just parks, but movies and everything. So Card Walker was sort of the head man in charge of all theme parks, and Ron Miller was the head man in charge of him and everything else. So that was who he answered to. But this little creature in the center here, Ruthie and I were talking about it earlier, and we think this is probably from the Tokyo Disneyland version of the Jungle Cruise, because this looks like around that time period when that would have been being built, and it looks exactly like the tiger in the other Jungle Cruise rides, so that's what I'm guessing. So Ron Miller was heavily involved in Epcot, and there would be no Epcot without Ron Miller, and there would probably be no Tokyo Disneyland without Ron Miller. He was very much the spearhead behind those two theme park projects, probably two of the biggest theme park projects in the history of the Walt Disney Company. So we're not talking about just some guy who was married to Walt Disney's daughter. He was pivotal to all of these goings on during that period. So
some of the highlights in his career. So he was elected the president of Walt Disney Productions in 1980. And in 1983, he became Disney's CEO. And he shepherded the company through the launch of the Disney Channel, the establishment of Touchstone Pictures, which I think was a pet project for him because he really wanted to make an avenue where Disney could make movies that weren't just family-friendly movies. So his idea was to come up with Touchstone Pictures. And then, like we already mentioned, he was a key proponent of the development of Epcot Center and Tokyo Disney. So, I mean, these are things that people still obviously think about when you think of Disney. So really, you need to be thinking about Ron Miller when you think about these things.
Yeah. So, unfortunately, Disney went through some hard times towards the end of his tenure, and I don't really think it was entirely his fault. I think part of the problem was society had moved on, and he was trying to hold on to the classic family-friendly Disney, and society had gotten a little tired of it, and they didn't want to go see Herbie Goes Bananas. They wanted to go see Jaws or Poltergeist at that point. So Disney was sort of failing at the box office. And then, they were failing at the box office. They were tanking. And then, with the addition of all the money that went into Epcot and Tokyo, just the company by around 82 was in deep, deep trouble. And they had hostile takeover bids happening, and finally, they got rid of him unceremoniously. They ousted him. And unfortunately, the main person behind that was Roy Disney's son, Roy Disney Jr. He was sort of the one who pushed him out and brought in Eisner and Frank Wells. But the thing about it is, he never complained. He never put up a fight. He never spoke to the media about it, ever. He died. He took those feelings with him to the grave. He only had positive things ever to say about his experience at Disney, the Disney organization. He just wouldn't say anything negative about Disney. He was a class act.
Yeah.
And you don't find too many executive producers nowadays that have that sort of class. A dying breed, literally.
Yeah.
So when he left Disney, he sort of had already started a winery, a vineyard, with his wife, and so they sort of focused on that for several years. So he was really retired, and just sort of a pet project, they worked on their vineyard in Northern California. And then after a book was written called Hollywood's Dark Prince, which was a tabloid, basically, full of just unproven, just a bunch of people were interviewed that had some sort of axe to gripe with Walt for one reason or another, because maybe they were fired from the company. So it's just full of it only tells one side of the story. A lot of the facts are not. It's basically like a National Enquirer expose type, and it's full of lies. And unfortunately, a lot of people read this book and took it as gospel. And this really, really bothered Diane, to the point where she made it her life's goal from that point on to really let people know who her father was. She created a documentary about him called Walt, the Myth. What's it called?
The Man Behind the Myth.
The Man Behind the Myth. She commissioned the Walt Disney Concert Hall.
Along with her mother.
Lillian. And he was kind of behind the scenes helping with all these things. Ron Miller, again, he was perfectly content to be, the silent partner, but he was definitely heavily involved in all of these projects alongside his wife. And the biggie was the Walt Disney Family Museum, which he was a pivotal player in seeing that become a reality. And all of these projects were as a result of that book, Hollywood's Dark Prince. And thank God, because people, once in a while, I'll turn on a YouTube video which will say Walt Disney was an anti-Semite, which is hogwash. Because people don't research. They read one book and they decide they know everything. So anyway, she did more to turn the tide on that opinion than anybody else possibly could. And I think successfully, because a lot of that stuff has been sort of shut out. Those things that have been disproven and so the public discourse is much more positive again towards Walt than it was during that earlier Dark Prince era. And Roy had a lot to do with that as well.
Yeah, I know, like, now, if you want to find proof that Walt Disney was not anti-Semitic, you will be able to find it very easily on the internet.
Yes.
There's proof right there. He was not.
Yeah. So anyway, Diane died very unexpectedly in a freak falling accident. What year was that? 2013?
2013.
Right. So he was widowed. I think that if he hadn't been widowed, he may have held on longer. That really takes a toll on someone when that happens. He was at the 60th anniversary of Disneyland on July 17th, 1960. He occasionally would make public appearances for different Disney events over the years. I know that when he was still CEO, he was involved in the grand opening ceremonies of the new Fantasyland in 1983. I have some video footage of him reading the dedication for the new Fantasyland, which was basically, he reread Walt's original dedication, and they sort of replicated that whole ceremony with the lowering of the drawbridge and all that.
Yeah.
So he remained a public figure to an extent. When his services were called upon, he would show up. So that is our little brief history of Ron Miller. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think it was interesting that they, him and Diane actually had 7 children, and so he had 13 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. So he is survived by a large family, which I'm sure they're going to continue to, allow his legacy to live on. But there is
to make sure that, like, the family museum and the Walt Disney Concert Hall all continue on, and that's definitely in good hands.
Yeah, I did want to, Bob Iger gave a quote about this news, and I wanted to read that there, and we can just end on that.
Okay.
But everyone at the Walt Disney Company is deeply saddened by the passing of Ron Miller. Disney's current chairman and CEO, Bob Iger, said, "His life and legacy are intrinsically linked with our company and the Disney family because he was such a vital part of both, as our CEO and Walt's son-in-law. Few people had Ron's understanding of our history or a deeper appreciation and respect for our company, and he shared it generously with anyone who wanted to know more. I was fortunate to have known him and even luckier to have called him a friend. My thoughts and prayers are with his family."
Oh, well, on a less serious note.
Now we're going to get into some controversial topics.
Yeah. Well, I just hope that we don't have to lead off our next episode with an obituary because I'm getting tired of it.
I know.
No more people are allowed to die.
We cannot lose any more Disney people.
Yes. Nope. Well, anyway, now we're going to talk about popcorn buckets and the controversy that has stirred around these popcorn buckets because, and other things, other park exclusive merchandise, because people, and this has been going on for years, and I'm actually glad that Disney is finally cracking down on this because it's outrageous. People who are annual pass holders, when they find out something new is going to be launched, that day, they'll get to the park the moment it opens, and they'll go in and they'll buy 12 dozen. They'll sell out because they bought all of these, and they walk away with all this merchandise that you're supposed to only be able to buy in the park. And then they would go on eBay and resell it at an outrageous price, and and
it's like
gorge
200%
people.
margin.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah,
and absolutely unfair. People who can't get to Disneyland, like me, if they want this merchandise, that was the only way they could get it. I feel Disney should just make it available to people who can call on and order it from them. I don't understand why they can't do that. I mean, enough people go to the park. They don't need the merchandise to convince people to go.
Right. That's not why they're going. I mean, some people maybe, but the majority
annual
of people
pass holders will go to buy 20 of them and resell them. But so anyway, what they've started doing is cracking down on this by having it so that if they catch anyone doing this, they take away their annual pass, which is 100% within their rights because it says so on the contract.
Yeah.
That they're not allowed to be doing that. They're not allowed to profit from their annual pass, basically. And reselling this merchandise is making a profit out of the fact they can go to Disneyland anytime they want to and buy it the moment it's released. I think Disney should also stop telling people. Stop publicizing the day and time it's going to be released. That way it'll give people just a fighting chance. It's just the average guest who just wants to buy one Yeti pop. What do you call those?
Funko Pop.
Funkos.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to just have one Yeti Funko Pop, they're in the park and they see one, they can buy one instead of like them getting sold out immediately and being sold on eBay and they run out of stock. And then when they restock them, they just sit there on the shelf because the excitement has gone. You know?
Well, it's like a double-edged sword for them because, they want to advertise that, this new exclusive item is going to be available at the parks. But then it becomes this, mad rush of people trying to buy it so that they can resell it on eBay and stuff.
So what sort of sucks is people who would do the reselling on eBay is one problem. But another type of person would just do it as a favor And it would be like, basically they gave it two terms here. We've got flippers, who are what I just described, and then we have personal shoppers. They're a different breed, and I don't really have a problem with the personal shopper thing, because that's someone who would get something for someone like me that can't go to Disneyland because I live 3,000 miles away and I have a disability. I have several disabilities and I can't really afford. I'm on, I don't have that kind of money to go to Disneyland anymore, unfortunately. So if I want the Hatbox Ghost Funko, I could contact one of these personal shoppers, and for a small fee, a reasonable fee, they would go get me one item and ship it to me. And they would just make a small profit. They wouldn't price gouge. And if you know personal shoppers, and the way to find out about them is just through word of mouth, and just if you're a Disney person and you communicate with other Disney people, they'll say, oh, Sherry does this, so why don't you contact Sherry? I don't know anybody named Sherry. That's just a random name. So don't look for Sherry, because she'll probably get annoyed if... What are you talking about? Anyway, these people are also getting their annual passes taken away. I don't think that's fair. Because they're not doing really any harm in my mind. But Disney isn't differentiating between the two, which is their right. And I don't blame them, because they've been taken advantage of in this way for quite some time, and it's to the guests' detriment. I mean, it's ruining the guest experience, because they can't just buy one souvenir. The average guest, they get sold out, and it's become a problem. One of the big items that really irked Disney and nerved them. This is probably
the one that really pushed this.
This is the one that put it over the edge, was this Hatbox Ghost Tiki mug, which I would love to have. That's cool.
I know, it's so
I would
beautiful.
love to have that. But I mean, this sold out within minutes, and it was all over eBay at a ridiculous price. How much were they going for? Like $200 or something?
Something like that. I mean, the tiki mugs are always a hot seller, a quick item.
But this one had they combined two fan bases into one. You got the tiki fans, because you got them, and then you got the Haunted Mansion fans, and they're not always the same fans. So now you got fans from two different divisions of Disney fandom, both wanting the same thing, because it covers both areas. So this was a big problem. You're lucky if you got one of these.
I know,
for less than
at retail price.
Yeah, exactly.
So now, like, Disney is finally revoking people's annual passes, and I've seen some stories on Facebook where people will go to the park and just, show their pass like they normally would, and they're not being let in because their annual pass is now canceled.
Yeah, because they got caught.
Yeah, and that's how they're finding out that their pass is canceled.
Right. And Disney doesn't have to tell them.
Right.
So
these are all terms of being an annual pass holder. It's all terms of service. You got to read the fine print.
Exactly. Disney's perfectly within their legal right to do this without giving you a refund. And the one thing they're doing, which they do not have to do, is they will allow you to renew your pass in a year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're not banning you for life. And if you want to pay to get in as a regular customer, you can do that too. Like if you want to buy a ticket for one day, a one-day hop or whatever, you can do that. But you can't use your annual pass. Sorry.
Right.
No soup for you.
Yeah. And the other thing that Disney's doing is, if you are an annual pass holder, they're limiting the amount of items that you could purchase now. So usually now it's one item per pass holder. So like usually you have a family, you have a mother, father, and then the kids. So one pass holder each can buy one of these items.
3 popcorn
buckets. So the mother
buckets,
can, the daughter
20.
can, the husband, all of that.
One thing that's fun that they brought back, which is sort of like nice to make up for this, is they brought back, because they had done this before, but they have like refills for the popcorn at you pay less. Like, you still have to pay, but it's like
99 cents or something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot less expensive. So once you buy the popcorn bucket, you can refill it real cheap. They were doing that at Disney World when I went. I bought a popcorn bucket, and the whole time I was there, I was able to refill it. And every day, like, I just brought it with me when I went to the parks. It didn't matter what park. And if I wanted a cheap snack, I could just fill it up for like $1. And it was a huge bucket. Yeah. It wasn't one of the fancy ones. It was just a plain round bucket with Disney characters on it. But still, it was a really good deal. And they brought that back, so that's good. I guess they were doing it at Disney World still, but not Disneyland. But now they're doing it at Disneyland, so.
Yeah.
Speaking of revoking things, Disney has gotten wise to another practice of people taking advantage. And the other story is pretty much more about Disneyland that was happening, to a degree in Disney World also. But the annual Passholder thing is not a big thing in Florida where it is in California. But this story we're going to talk about now is much more, in fact, it really is only about Florida. Because what people were doing is...
I know, it's kind of crazy to think.
It's silly. It's silly. They were reserving a room in a Disney resort so that they could get the 60-day out booking of fast passes. Because if you are staying on a Disney property, you can book your fast passes exactly 60 days from your check-in. If you're not, I think it's like 2 weeks before.
It's 30 days.
It's 30 days?
30 days,
you're at a real advantage if you're staying on Disney property at getting those hard-to-get fast passes. And so what people were doing is they were booking and then and scheduling their fast passes, and then right before their deposit was going to turn into a non-refundable deposit, like the day before, they would cancel their reservation for the hotel, but keep their fast pass reservations. That's pretty ingenious. Why didn't I think of that?
Out that this is going to work.
Well, I would think I would have assumed that they would have canceled your fast passes.
Exactly.
That was sort of a dumb move on Disney's part.
Should be canceled.
Yeah, but apparently they weren't for a long time. So they've only just started doing this, which is ridiculous. They should have been doing this all along.
Right.
If you cancel your room, then your fast passes get canceled because that comes with your room.
Right.
You're welcome to reschedule your fast passes, but you have to wait in line like everybody else. So anyway, if you thought of cheating the system, Disney is not putting up with it anymore, and good for them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is ridiculous because, like I said,
I think they should.
This out.
Okay, listen. If I were in charge, if I were Ron Miller or Bob Iger, I would completely eliminate the whole Fast Pass thing. It's ridiculous. It's a fiasco. It's just so stupid. I hated it. The whole time I was in Disney World, I absolutely hated it. It was the first time I ever had to deal with Fast Pass, because the last time I had gone to a park, it didn't even exist, or, It made the lines twice, 3 times as long. It didn't save me any time at all. It just made me really angry and frustrated. When I was going to Disneyland before that, even though Pirates of the Caribbean went way out into where the Rivers of America is, I'm talking Disneyland here, it would take me 15 minutes to get on the ride because it moved so fast. But when they add Fast Pass, when it's out to the Rivers of America, it takes an hour. So it's like, I was so used to the old way and looking at a line and saying, oh, well, this is Pirates of the Caribbean. I'll get on this right away. And then being in that line for an hour, especially when at the Disney World, you're in that cave, and I sometimes get a little claustrophobic, and I was almost had to leave. I was really thinking about getting out of the line because I was getting a little, creeped out about being confined like that. So anyway, I hate Fast Pass. Just get rid of it. Maybe keep it in the way they do it in Disneyland, the legacy, the paper, you have to be there that day to get it, but this whole booking in advance hogwash, you can have it.
I don't like that because it's like 60 days before your trip, you have to decide what ride you're going to go on.
Yeah, you have to decide what show, what time you're going to eat, what restaurant you're going to be at this time. Like, I mean, when I go to the park, I just want to, do what I feel like doing at that moment. I don't want to plan out everything.
It takes away any spontaneity, and it also adds a level of competitiveness.
And it also adds frustration, and it doesn't save anybody any time. The first Fast Pass was dining reservations, believe it or not, before it became that's another fiasco, is these advanced dining reservation business. Yeah. In the old days, what you would do is, and for this I agree with the Fast Pass, this was really the birth of the Fast Pass. You'd have to go to the park, be in the park, and outside of every sit-down restaurant, they would have a podium with a human being standing behind the podium, and you would stand in a very short line and walk up and tell them what time you want to eat that day. They would give you a little card with your time on it, and you could go on your merry way and then come back and your table was waiting for you. And that's really what Fast Pass is, only they did it for restaurants. And that was prevented people from not being able to eat at a restaurant because you had to be there to make the reservation, and it was just so much better.
Right, and it also helped them fill tables.
Yeah. So, then they did this ADR business, and the reason they started that was because they wanted to keep people from going off property, and then it just became a whole monster. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's move on to some happier news. So, we are proud to announce that World of Color is finally returning. Woo-hoo. I don't know what was going on.
Oh, it's been closed for a long time.
Technical issues that they were having. It's going to return in just a few days, February 22nd. Gosh, when did it was it's been closed almost a year, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it has been almost a year.
And it was some sort of a problem that they had to completely redo all of the wiring or something.
Well, I think they were just closing it so that they could do a lot of the Pixar stuff in California Adventure. And I don't know if this is true, but I heard that one of the water features and something got damaged.
Oh yeah, and I think I heard that too.
So it ended up keeping it closed longer because it took longer for them to fix.
Right, exactly. So the first day will be February 22nd, and this is going to be considered a soft opening. And the soft openings will take place through February 28th, and the official return date is March 1st.
Yeah.
And the dessert party reservations, which get you sort of a better seat, and you get a platter of cheeses and grapes and little goodies along with it. I think it's overpriced, but if you really want to, if you've never seen the show before, I would do it once, because if I went to California Adventure, I think I might consider it because I've never seen World of Color, and I would want a good seat for my first time seeing it. But after that, I would never pay extra for a seat. And I don't think Disney should even be doing that, but if you can't fight the system, you have to join the system.
Right.
So they're already taking reservations for the dessert party, and they're booking it for the soft openings, which seems odd. If they're calling it a soft opening, then I don't understand the soft opening
Yeah,
phenomenon.
I don't understand either.
It either is open or it isn't open.
Yeah. If it was a soft opening to me, it sounds like what they should be doing is just handing out fast passes to people that day.
Yeah.
Because it's soft opening.
Make it
something might go wrong. So why make them pay for a dessert party if something goes wrong?
Exactly. So if that's what they mean, if they mean dress rehearsal by soft opening, then they shouldn't be charging people for that. They should wait until...
Wait a week.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another thing happening at California Adventure, and we know very little details about, but it sounds sort of exciting, is this summer. Is it this summer?
Summer.
It's this summer. As part of the debut of the live-action, quote-unquote, live-action Lion King, which is going to have absolutely nothing but animation, but they're calling it live-action. The Celebrate the Lion King event will be taking place at California Adventure. We have no pictures of what it's going to be. And we only have a few little blurbs that Disney put out about it. It doesn't really give too much information, but from what it says, I can sort of picture it a little bit. It says that it's going to be a vibrant celebration inspired by Disney's The Lion King. So I'm assuming by that it's going to have some sort of an African motif. Throughout the day, a traveling troupe of storytellers will arrive to celebrate The Lion King in story, song, and dance. To me, that sounds sort of like a street party style parade, where they kind of... And I'm seeing, like, in my mind, people on stilts and, like, big, like, costumes, like, from the Lion King Broadway show. It's kind of what I'm picturing. And then they just kind of stop along the parade route and do something. They're going to do songs and dance, inviting everybody to join in, yada yada. And that's pretty much all they've said, but I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit more involved than just that. Now, I remember in the 90s, when the original Lion King came out, they did a lot of things in the parks. One of them was this terrific parade called, what was it called? The Lion King Cavalcade or something like that. And they had basically a whole parade down Main Street with the Lion King theme. And it had audio animatronic versions of some of the four-legged characters that were kind of difficult to do as walk-around characters. Of course, Timon and Pumbaa were walk-around in the parade, but like the actual lion was up on a rock, and it wasn't audio animatronic. I think there was someone inside the float with moving it around, but it looked audio animatronic because it moved.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. And they had other animals like that, and they had these really cool elephants that walked around, you know, with someone in the front and someone in the back, but it was designed better than the old school versions of those horse costumes. It looked convincing, the way the muscle structure was designed and everything. So I'm picturing that. And then I know they had a stage show that I saw several times because it was there when I worked at Disney World. It was called the Festival of the Lion King, I think, and it was a stage show where PhilharMagic is now in the Magic Kingdom, and it was kind of a puppet show where they had all the characters going around the stage as puppets, and they had people underneath moving them around. It was a lot of fun. So I remember Lion King was a big deal when it came out.
Yeah,
like,
it was.
The parks were really influenced by it. And to this day, they still have that Lion King show at Animal Kingdom, which definitely is the grandfather to that Lion King parade. When I saw it, it reminded me so much of the parade. In fact, I think some of the things they use in that show were originally used in the parade, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, and when we find out more details, we'll tell you guys
report
about
more
them.
when we find out, and we'll share pictures when there are pictures. Now, there's not any concept art or anything. I looked everywhere, and I couldn't find anything. So we have some rapid fire stories at the end of this episode, but our last main story is fun and positive. We try to end things on a happy note here.
Yeah.
Get the sad and annoying stuff
Mm-hmm.
out of the way. So, Tangaroa Terrace, which has been at the Disneyland Hotel for several years now, it recently closed and had a major refurbishment. And it's the same type of restaurant. And the inside has changed only a little bit. We'll show you a little bit of some of the new fun details on the inside. But really the main change is the outdoor patio area, because now they have actually a little bar area and a window where you can order food from outside the restaurant. And it's turned into less of a sit-down place and more of a grab-and-go type place. Mm-hmm. It still can be utilized. It's multifunctional, really. You can use it as an outdoor little snack bar. You can use it as a grab-and-go because they've got grab-and-go stuff inside. Or you can order your food and sit down and eat it in the dining area. So it gives you all these different options, which I think is fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the new bar area you're looking at. And then on the inside, like I said, it hasn't changed very much. This is where you order your food if you're going to dine in. And it hasn't changed much there, but next to it, nearby, they have a whole grab-and-go station with all sorts of goodies, chips and bananas and M&Ms. I see. What else do you see?
I know
muffins.
they have like some healthy snacks there too.
Yeah, granola bars and all that kind of goodies.
Coffee, Dole Whip,
coffee,
all of the fun stuff.
Yeah. And then you can also get, hot dishes and regular food. And here's... Okay, now before I bring up this image, make sure you're sitting down and get ready for your mouth to water, everybody.
Yeah.
So, these are some of the dishes available, both hot and cold. They have a big breakfast menu now, including Tangaroa toast, also known in Florida as Tonga toast, which is basically like a Hawaiian version of French toast with bananas on it.
Right there.
That's square, yeah, the second row down next to the pancakes. Mm-hmm. Definitely, if I was there, I'd be ordering that Hawaiian burger. I love Hawaiian burgers. I just have a pineapple thing. Like, anything with pineapple. I'm guilty of being one of those people who loves pineapple pizza.
Oh,
yes.
I love pineapple too. I am right there with you. Just so you know, the picture to the left of the Tangaroa toast, those pancakes,
yes. Mm-hmm.
Those are pineapple upside down pancakes.
Oh my gosh.
So I would be all over that.
Oh, me too. I'd be torn. I might have to order both.
I know, right?
Yeah. So they've also got a great kids menu. The 4 pictures above the Dole Whip are the kids menu items. They've got some salads. I mean, I could just eat there forever.
Yeah.
And I can have a Dole Whip float while I'm there.
Yeah. I mean, this
Sign
is
me
just
up.
a touch of their menu.
Yeah.
These pictures.
Yeah. So the interior dining area has changed a little bit. They have a new mural. You can see it on the right there. I have some closer pictures of it. But what's fun about this mural is it's sort of a Where's Waldo, because they have within it hidden different characters from the Enchanted Tiki Room. And they're sort of camouflaged within it. And if you look at it, you can spot some of them. Here's another look at it from another angle. And then here's a closer, and you can see one of the tiki birds on the right-hand side there, sort of hidden. Looks kind of, if you're not really looking, you might miss it. So there's several of those all hidden within the mural. So that's fun. And there's also a terrific view of the outdoor pool area. It's just a really charming place. I would definitely want to check it out if I went to Disneyland again.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And the thing about this is, so the Disneyland Hotel is kind of like a mid-century modern theme. So the tiki fits right in, because tiki was very popular back in the mid-century modern era, which is like the late 50s and 60s.
And they also have a whole tower that's called the Adventureland Tower, so it sort of ties into that as well.
Right. Just in case you were wondering why they have this tiki-themed restaurant at the Disneyland Hotel.
Outside of Disneyland, at the hotel. Yeah, right. They have the Trader Sam's there too, the tiki bar right next door to this. Yeah. So now we have a few rapid fire stories to end out the show. And the first one we want to talk about involves bags. It's very exciting. Are you ready for this one?
Do it.
Hold on, I gotta set this up. It's very complicated here. There's a lot involved in these bags. There you have it, folks. Reusable bags. We should have let off with that story.
I know, right?
Ron Miller could have been the second story. So, yes, folks, Disney is now offering, optionally, the use of recyclable bags, reusable bags, made from 70% recycled materials. And now, see, if it were me, I would want this bag for use outside of the park. And they're really inexpensive. I think
they are.
The large one is only $250. So I would buy that and use it to like go to the laundromat, carry my soap in it, or because I don't have a car, so I have my little cart that I roll to the laundromat. So I would love to have a little bag like that to put my softener sheets in. But anyway, I mean, I'd buy them just for that, just to have it for home. Right. But I think this is terrific. I support it. They're cute. They're well designed. And, plastic bags are destroying our oceans and killing animals that are endangered, and it's something we really need to think about, and we need to really stop the use of these bags. I mean, the materials they use to create these bags will be here in 10,000 years. They don't decompose, and there's going to be a point where there's going to be more. Have you seen the beginning of the movie WALL-E? That's what the world is going to be like if we don't change our ways. So I support this. I think it's good. I just hope Disney doesn't decide at some point. I was listening to Mouse Rants this morning, Jerry Skid's show, and he was saying how he's afraid that at some point it won't be optional anymore, and you'll have to buy a bag. Or what they'll do is if you want to buy a plastic bag, they'll make you pay for that. So who knows? But for now, I like it because it's optional, and they're very reasonably priced. I mean, unheard of reasonably for Disney. Anything with a Mickey on it gets charged double. And these cost the same as the ones they sell at, Whole Foods. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So one thing about this, they've had reusable bags for a while now, but what this is kind of like a expansion of the program.
Yeah.
So now they used to have only one size. Now they have three
three
sizes, and also they have these a bag for basically every park in the United States.
Yeah. It's all
that
themed
will
to each
represent.
park. Yeah.
Correct.
And
so it's not just a bag; it's a souvenir.
Yeah. So
Like, I
they've
went
got.
to Disney
You
California
can buy
Adventure, and I
one
got
for
this
each
bag.
park. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the
So-
one you're looking at here is the one for Downtown Disney.
Mm-hmm. And it's like the World of Disney store. Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they're really cute. Like, they are
Yeah,
really cute.
they
All
are.
of them have awesome designs. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, like, this totally makes sense. And I really encourage you guys to buy these bags because they are very inexpensive. You know, they're not going to be more than $5 each. And they're, you know, you can get a really large one and put all your stuff in there, because I remember so many times going to the parks and buying a little, you know, something from this store and something from that store. And I literally had like 10 bags. I
Yeah.
don't need 10 bags from Disneyland.
Yeah, it's so annoying when you go
Yeah.
shopping. Like, if you go to the mall and you need to pick up a few things, and then you get home and you spend like an hour
Yeah.
clipping off the tags and taking it out from the packaging, and it's so annoying.
And it's all goes in the trash.
It all goes in the
So,
trash.
I mean, just definitely, you know, invest in these. And you know what? There's no harm in throwing this in your backpack or in your suitcase when you're traveling,
Yeah.
because it's flat. So it's not going to add
And
anything to your suitcase.
Ruthie and I were talking about, because Ruthie may be going to D23 this year. I'm probably not, but Ruthie is it's a good possibility. And I suggested, because we're thinking about making buttons to hand out that say Jiminy Crickets on them to sort of promote our show. And I said to her, why don't you just go into one of the stores while you're there and buy one of these bags and fill it with the buttons? And you can carry it around the convention and just hand out the buttons from the bag. So that's how we're going to use them.
And it's not going to stop there.
Right. So our next story, it's time to play the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to make things happen at the Muppet Show tonight. Boom, boom, boom. Anyway, did I give away what our next topic is? So, there is talking going on. Probably not just rumor. I think this is, considering who's involved, I think it's probably going to happen, that they're going to bring back the Muppets again. I keep trying to bring back the Muppets, and it's just not clicking.
Mhm.
But I think they're doing it the wrong way, and I'm a little more confident about their plan this time.
Mhm.
What you're looking at in this picture is a screenshot from The Muppets Take Manhattan, which was a movie from 1984. At the end of the movie, Kermit and Miss Piggy actually get married, and then, like, you never hear about it again. Like, they're not
Right.
married now, but
Yeah.
they actually did get married in that movie. And so, what they're talking about is creating a brand new show for Disney Plus, which is the online streaming, where it's going to take place in the 80s, right at the end of The Muppets Take Manhattan, which is genius, because people are nostalgic for the 80s right now,
Mhm.
and people are nostalgic for the Muppets. And if you put those two together, I think that's a winning combination. I think the problem with their last TV show was they tried to modernize the Muppets.
Yeah. Yep.
People want classic Muppets in classic situations, in nostalgic situations. And I think this is perfect. So it's not just going to be a show about the lovable Muppets, but it's also going to be a show probably spoofing the 80s, which people love that right now.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
in. That's trending, as they say. So I think this will be a big deal. I think this will get a lot of people to subscribe to Disney Plus.
Yeah. I hope so.
I'm already going to be subscribing.
Yeah, me too.
Regardless. But
yeah.
This just gives me even more reason to want to subscribe. So tell us more about this, Ruthie. Like, who's involved and what's the ins and outs of this?
So last episode we talked about Josh Gad being involved in the live-action Hunchback. Well, now he's also involved in the Muppet revival. And supposedly he's working with ABC's Once Upon a Time creators Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz to develop this show. And right now the project is called, the title of the show is Muppets Live Another Day.
Another Day, yeah.
So, and then like Chris said, it's a show that's going to be taking place right after Muppets Take Manhattan. And the gang has disbanded, which is just basically the same thing.
I'm
that
picturing it.
The Muppets.
Yeah, I'm picturing Kermit and Miss Piggy get married, and then everyone goes off on their own little merry way.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Until they hear about the mysterious disappearance of Rolf, and they all come back together to find him.
I love that.
Yeah.
I especially love that because Rolf is the original Muppet character. He predates Kermit. So I love that he's the one that is missing.
Yeah.
Because he's the original. He's the OG Muppet. So
this series
is
expected to arrive in 2020.
A little off topic, but if you have a chance, go online and look up Kermit kills people over coffee.
Oh gosh.
There's this series of ads from the 60s, early 60s, where Kermit is killing other Muppets and cannons, or because they won't drink this particular brand of coffee. I can't remember the brand of coffee. I don't think it exists anymore, but it's just really, really morbid. And I don't understand how that was, like, it doesn't pull off today. Maybe people were a little darker back then. I don't know. You'd think it'd be the opposite. But it just seemed very dark. But if you have a chance, it's about 5 minutes long, and it shows like a whole series of 30-second ads with Kermit killing people and things. It's the old original Kermit, which is creepy looking also.
Yeah.
So
That's not like him at all.
Anyway, I just recently had seen that, so I thought I'd bring it up. What's our next quick fire story?
So there is rumor that talks are underway.
This is definitely a rumor.
Huh?
I just want to make sure people understand this is definitely a rumor.
Right. We don't have any confirmation yet.
Yeah.
But there's a rumor that Disney is in talks to do something with Nightmare Before Christmas. So either a sequel or a live-action remake. So it's something. It could be either or. So it's still in like the thought process, basically.
What my thinking is it's gonna be done in the style of the original stop motion, but they're not gonna use stop motion. They're gonna do it with computers. That's what I'm thinking.
As a sequel?
As a sequel or whatever. Or a prequel or something. But I feel like they're gonna copy the exact style of the original and try to make it look as if it's stop motion, but do it using computer technology instead, which I'm sure is definitely possible to do. And it would be interesting.
It's probably more cost effective.
And time effective.
Right. Yeah.
I think the first one, what did we say? It took like 5 years for them to make it.
Right. And then they had to have different, models of his head, like with different expressions, and they had to change it out.
So I feel like they're gonna like use the technology but dumb it down, so that it looks a little more jerky and herky-jerky, like so it looks like stop motion even though it isn't. That's my prediction. Let's see if that happens, and when it does or doesn't, you can call me on it.
I'm fine with them doing something more with this, this product, this, storyline, these characters. Yeah, but it has to be done right.
Yes, it has to be done right.
I don't want a live-action remake of this movie.
Absolutely do not want a live-action.
No.
And I don't want anything that looks like CGI.
Right.
That's why I say I would be happy with either what I just described, or if they did it old school, actual...
Right. Stop motion. Yeah.
Stop motion animation, which I just don't think they're going to do that. But
right.
if they do it the way I described, which I think might be... I mean, it would make sense to me that they would do it that way, because that's what people would want to see. And I would be okay with it. As long as it looks the same, I would be okay.
Right.
As long as it looks like the same universe and the same characters and they move and interact in the same ways, I'm fine. I don't care if it happens through a box or through people moving little models around.
Yeah,
I just
and
care
I
about
really
what it looks like.
need to have whatever story they come up with, it has to fit.
It has to be a good story.
It has to be. It has to be
it
a
can't
good
be another
story.
cash grab like other
Right.
sequels have been.
So don't touch this unless you're doing it right.
Well, I'm sure that Tim Burton wouldn't allow it to be touched unless it was done right.
Well, hopefully.
Unless he doesn't have any say in it, I don't know.
And I kind of feel like I really want him involved in some way too. But of course, this is early talk, so they don't have anybody linked to this project yet. So.
Remember me. So our next rapid fire is that they are going to do some sort of a outdoor show with the mariachi band at the Epcot, and that play in front of the Mariachi Cobre. They play in front of the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot. They're going to start doing shows that include a puppet character from Coco. What's the name of the boy from Coco? I don't remember.
Miguel,
as you can see in this picture here, that's a little puppet, and it's going to be moved around by somebody standing behind like that. And they're going to sort of tell the story of Coco through the mariachi band, and also I think they're going to have some dancers moving around, you know, like what do they call them? The Mexican hat dance type dancers in those long, beautiful...
Those flowy skirts.
Yeah. I can picture it. I support it.
I can picture it,
I would
too.
enjoy watching that. I remember when I went last year, the day I just happened to go to the Mexico Pavilion, the regular mariachi band was their day off, so they had like the second tier group, which I actually liked better. Because I've mentioned before, I really love Latin American music. I mean, I really love it a lot. I enjoy it. Not modern. I can listen to modern Latin music, but I really love just like classic Latin music.
Traditional music.
Traditional, yeah. Especially the music from Brazil. I love like samba and that type of music. So they actually had a samba group. So I was just like, I just had to stop there and watch the whole show from beginning to end. Of course, I had plenty of time. I was there 10 days, so I just, like, took my time with things. But yeah, so I really enjoy this type of thing, and I would definitely be first in line to watch this one.
They already do this at California Adventure with this Miguel puppet.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about Coco. Coco in California is huge because there is a huge, Hispanic community there in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I have been, the last time I went to Disneyland this past summer, watching the fireworks show, and they had a little part of Coco, and literally, like, everybody, like, it's almost like a superstar's there. When Coco pops up, everybody freaks out.
Everyone
they
goes
love
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this movie definitely needs all the praise it deserves and all the love that people give it, because it's amazing. And I hope that Epcot will give the same.
And when I see it, I'm sure I'll love it too.
You will, and no question, hands down, you'll love it. I just want Florida and, you know, the people that go to Walt Disney World to start getting more exposure to Coco and loving it as much as, you know, the people in California do.
They already had some stuff going on in the They had a whole, you know, when you first walk in, they have that little museum area.
Display.
Yeah.
But this is different. This is a show. Also, you know, maybe they're, you know, kind of testing the waters to see, you know, if they can change the attraction there at the Mexico Pavilion. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm afraid that they're not going to be able to, and it's not because of lack of popularity. It's because of popularity. That the way that ride is situated, where it's located, if it had like Frozen Ever After lines, it would be insane in that building.
Well, I think
they'd have to do
there's
something.
There's got to be something that they can do.
They'd have to build another more building behind. They'd have to build a new structure for it. They couldn't do it the way it is now.
Yeah.
There's no way that would work. Well, we have one final rapid fire story.
This is a good story to end.
Well, in case you weren't aware, Kevin has been spotted in Animal Kingdom. Kevin, if you don't know, is a Pixar character from one of my favorite, if not my favorite, I think it is my favorite Pixar movie, Up. And Kevin is one of the reasons it's my favorite movie. I love Kevin. And the reason he's Kevin is because the little boy in the movie just names him randomly Kevin, because he doesn't have another name to call him. And he's like a rare, almost like he's an almost near extinction dodo bird that the villain in the movie is trying to capture, and they end up... He's actually the baby, isn't... Or no, Kevin is the mother.
Kevin's the mother, yeah. So
it
turns
out...
out
a woman named Kevin. Yeah.
Kevin he is not a he,
and,
it's a
and
she.
she's trying to get back to her baby, so they help her come back to her baby. It's really kind of sad, and you know that what happens, but it has a happy ending, so that's good. So the Animal Kingdom has a walk around version of Kevin greeting guests. I approve of this. Do you approve of this?
Yes, I think this is so cute. This is awesome.
Perfect for Animal Kingdom.
I would love to do this.
Yeah, I would definitely.
I'm not a big character greeter, meet and greet kind of person. I don't really feel like I want to spend a lot of time doing that at the park, but this one, I'd make an exception. This is crazy and cool. I love it.
Okay, well, this is my feeling on that. Like, I did get a fast pass to get a picture with Mickey, just because you gotta get a picture with Mickey, especially I hadn't been to the park in 10 years. I needed to get a picture with Mickey. But I wouldn't have waited for an hour. I had a fast pass. I waited like 10 minutes. But I planned that out specifically. But if I just stumbled upon a character and I didn't have to wait in line, I would be all about it.
Oh, yeah.
It's the line waiting that it's turned into that I don't want to waste my time. But, I mean, I love to take pictures and be around the characters. I just can't. And I also feel like if I'm by myself, and a lot of the times just because my family has never been into Disney like me, and I've gone to the parks alone a lot of my life. So it's a little embarrassing to do that when you're by yourself, especially if you're an adult male.
Yeah.
And like, if it's a princess, like, you don't want to be standing in line to see Belle, if, you know, the people might think there's something wrong with you, or... Anyway, I get a little self-conscious. I know I shouldn't be. I shouldn't care what other people think, but I am human, so I do care what other people think, even though I don't want to. It's just the way I am. And anyway, for Kevin, I would probably wait a half hour. Yeah. Which is a lot for me.
Yeah, that is a lot.
I would prefer him really to... It seems from the video, though, that he's just walking around. There's no line, which is even better.
Well, hopefully, because they don't really do that a lot at Walt Disney World like they do at Disneyland.
I think it's probably easier to do it at Animal Kingdom just because of the way it's situated. It's more of... There's a lot more space and walking around than in the other parks.
Yeah, that's true. The other cool thing about this is they have released a adorable plush of Kevin. Yes. So I would definitely be buying that.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like they on character, they say. They caught the essence pretty well with the plush.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's our show. We ran a little long because we had a lot to say about Ron Miller. Hopefully, when we come back in 2 weeks, we won't have to be giving a life story of somebody who just passed away, because we don't want to. No. It's not fun.
So we're just going to put it out there now. We're not going to be doing anymore.
Nobody involved with Disney is allowed to die.
Right.
Ever again.
Because we said so.
Yes. Everyone who's ever worked for Disney, including me, because I've worked for Disney, is allowed to die. So, Ruthie, where can everybody find us on the www?
All right. You can find all of our past shows, including audio versions of Dateline Jiminy Crickets, on our website, jcricketpodcast.blogspot.com. You can also listen to us on iTunes under the name Jiminy Crickets. That's with an exclamation point. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review. On our YouTube channel, we share updates to the Disney Chris website, including the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour, as well as past episodes of the Jiminy Crickets podcast and Dateline Jiminy Crickets. You can find our channel if you search for DisneyChris.com. And remember, .com is spelled out DOTCOM. You can also join in the conversation over on our Facebook page, Jiminy Crickets Podcast, where you can not only interact with Chris and me and all the fellow Cricketeers, but you can also stay up to date with all the latest details of our many World Wide Web endeavors. If you would like to contact the show with any questions or comments, our email address is disneychrisdotcom@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
On Twitter, I'm at DisneyChris73, and both Ruthie and I can be found on Facebook. Ruthie is Ruthie Brown, that's spelled B-R-O-W-N, as in Charlie Brown.
There you go.
And I'm Chris Linden on Facebook, that's spelled L-Y-N-D-O-N, as in Lyndon Johnson, the president. My website is DisneyChris.com. On my website, you'll find a daily Disney Song of the Day, plus the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. And today, I just added my 1,652nd audio track to the Disneyland Magical Audio Tour. It's a growing collection. So be sure to check out my website and check out my audio tour of the original Magic Kingdom Disneyland. Now, if you would like to support our magical endeavors, you can do so by becoming a Patreon subscriber. And you'll find our Patreon at patreon.com/DisneyChris. And for as little as $1 a month, we will offer you a monthly package of free Disney audio materials. So consider that. And we're also in talks of offering even more special offerings to our Patreon subscribers. So stay tuned in the next few weeks for some new announcements regarding that. We're going to be making some major changes and giving a lot more fun surprises to those who help support our podcast and my website. If you do not feel comfortable with Patreon, you can also donate by using PayPal. And to get to my PayPal, you can just go to disneychris.com, which is my website, /donate.html. That'll bring you to a page with all the different options for supporting our show. And you are able to do a monthly subscription through PayPal, just like you do with Patreon. And if you do that, you are equally as eligible for all of the things that we give away as you are if you subscribe through Patreon. So either way, you get the same special gifts. Thank you gifts. So, Ruthie, do you have any final words for today?
I hope everybody feels loved and has a happy Valentine's Day.
Well, for those of us who are single, do something for yourself to make sure you love yourself, and eat an extra piece of chocolate cake or something like that. Indulge. It's just one day a year. I know they say that, and then there's Christmas and Halloween and Easter and your birthday. It's only 15 days a year.
Right.
So, Eddie, what's your final words for this week, Ruthie?
To quote Walt Disney, laughter is timeless, imagination has no age, dreams are forever.
And always let your conscience be your guide.
Now it's time to say goodbye to all our company. M-I-C.
See you real soon.
K-E-Y.
Why? Because we like you.